She was waiting for the right time, and then she'd have her way. Then everything would work as one and bring a brand new day. He was waiting for the right time when he would win the fight and take control of everything and do just as he liked. They were waiting for the right time, but the right time never came. Life just did what life will do and would not play their game. Those of us who are a little older hear the words of Ecclesiastes and hear in our heads a few more words attached to them, the words of a beautiful song. To everything, turn, turn, turn. The song was written by Pete Seeger and made famous by the 60s band The Byrds, among others. And what it does is it takes ancient wisdom and basically slams it like a 10-pound rock into the crystalline notion that we, with all our science, even with all our technology, have any control at all in life. Life will do what life will do. It will not play our game. I wrote this as we watched a Category 4, maybe 5 storm preparing to slam into the Gulf Coast, quite close to Houston, where Michelle Shirk and our kids and I worked so hard a few years ago to repair damage caused by Hurricane Hugo. I wrote as cries of injustice once again were ringing out, cries for equity and an end to systemic racism. Cries echoed by players in the National Basketball Association, the WNBA, Major League Baseball, saying, we're not going to play, we need to fix this. I wrote as I wore a mask in my own office, as we wear masks to go to school, to grocery stores, to work, just to meet together. I wrote as fire continues to plague California. I wrote remembering I have not hugged anyone outside of my immediate family for months. I wrote feeling overwhelmed, wondering if we could all take one more emergency, one more injustice, one more hardship, one more rotten thing. And as I wrote, that Pete Seeger song kept ringing in my ears with its underlying message: you are not in charge. You are not. You are not. We are not. Life will do what life will do. I reconnected with a friend the other day. An old friend. A really old friend. So old that some of you listening weren't around when he and I were out there causing trouble. He'd actually found me online. I tried to find him about a decade ago. I guess he's better at hide and seek than I am. He wanted to talk to me about his synagogue. You see, we both minored in religious studies. And, of course, we got to talking. And he said, it's like we're living a scene out of Genesis. Exactly. And you know, some of you have said to me over the years, looking at things that are happening, do you think God is trying to get our attention? And yeah, I think God's trying to get our attention all the time. But honestly, I don't think God made COVID-19, at least not directly. I don't think God created Hurricane Laura or Hugo, at least not directly. I don't think God works like that. Even though some of the Bible seems to think God does. If you go through especially the Old Testament, you'll see lots and lots of laws that point to this idea that if God's not pleased with the little things, you're going to pay big time. Don't sacrifice a lamb with a blemish to God. God's going to be unhappy. Don't let a fellow who's got one leg shorter than the other serve as a priest. God's going to be unhappy. Don't don't let a eunuch be a priest. Oh, for heaven's sakes, no. Even if that person was made a eunuch in an act of terrorism, because God's going to be unhappy. Don't eat the wrong thing. Don't forget the Sabbath. Don't. The people who wrote these words, they believed in what we call causation. Act this way and God will act that way. Act the wrong way and the result will be really bad. There's actually another word for this: superstition. The idea that if we act in a certain way, God and life will be under our control. In the midst of the Old Testament, where a lot of these ideas exist, there's the book of Job, which says right out loud, wait a second, this guy was wonderfully good, and yet all the bad stuff still happened. And yeah, later on, this guy named Jesus shows up, and he says, hey, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. But this idea that if somehow we act the right way, life will only be good, it persists in Scripture and in life. I do think God is pulling at our hearts all of the time, telling us the right thing to do. But not with hurricanes, not with fires, not with viruses. Those things just happen. And yeah, some argue that our own actions as humanity have helped those things along. And that's something we need to struggle with individually. And when it comes to the issues facing our society, we need to struggle with those and realize that we're all contributors. And we all need to be part of a godly solution. But the point is, the words of Ecclesiastes are going to come true in every life. Good times and bad times. Times to be people of action. Times to hang our heads in silence. Times to show joy. Times to show remorse. Times to work for real change. And yeah, a time to be born and a time to die. This is a picture of the seasons of life. And those who would say that a perfectly lived life of faith can somehow escape them, they're full of nonsense. And you know me. I don't mean nonsense. The author of Ecclesiastes actually has another word for it. Vanity. He says folks are full of vanity. And he calls the idea that we can gain any control in life chasing the wind. So what do? We embrace the moment right before us. The right now moment. Realizing that this is a gift God has given us. And we realize that life will give all of us the good and the bad, even when we have been very, very good, and even when we have been very bad. We seek in that moment to be Christ for the brothers and sisters in front of us, to be Christ, to manifest Jesus for them by living out His teachings. And we need to stop worrying about trying to control things. Jesus tells us we can't control them, and Jesus says we have to stop worrying about it. Jesus trumps all those who would say otherwise. Look for the best way to live out the love of God in the here and now. I believe that is the path to joy. There is, if you can accept it, a great comfort in realizing that life will do what life will do. Suddenly it's not your responsibility anymore. Suddenly we release the crazy idea that somehow we had any control. Suddenly we're left with just one responsibility: to follow Jesus and to act for Jesus and to act for the others who come our way. Follow Jesus. Let the world turn. And you usually, if not always, will know exactly what to do.